This is a monster, and then he wears sunglasses indoors. That's interesting to me. Now, that's very simple. Like, a guy that understands he needs a gimmick, but he's too uncreative to come up with one, would put sunglasses on. Okay. I'll take a simple gimmick in front of no gimmick. All the fighting nerds did is put a little tape in between their glasses. They became the greatest faction MMA has ever seen. The single greatest faction MMA has ever seen. The most monetizable and profitable as well. They sold those glasses. So I'm not against Francis putting these on. What if Francis came out and claimed he is the true champion? He's the baddest heavyweight in the world.
In front of him, I suspect that Francis, even at advanced age, will probably be able to stop any kind of takedown effort and certainly win on the feet. He should not lose this fight.
He moved on. He took a chance on himself. He stepped off that cliff of life, where life could be ending or beginning, and it's beginning big in boxing, and we're happy about it. Probable, and we're going to do everything we can to make that happen. Francis is training hard. He's going to be stronger, better, smarter, sharper.
Boxing pros and odds makers widely predict that Francis Ngannou's elite crossover power will be too much for Philipe Lins, heavily favoring the Predator to secure an emphatic victory. Even Eric Nixick revealed the secret weapon keeping Ngannou in peak condition to completely dismantle Lins.
Yeah, man. We got one of the best strength and conditioning coaches in the game, and Trip Hale. We hired Trip back in the Tyson Fury camp, and him and Francis have built this great relationship and rapport. Trip will travel with him. He's been to Cameroon. He's been to Dubai, to Paris. So having Trip involved in keeping him and Francis's life throughout in and out of camp has put us in a position to where we're able to get into camp in shape and ready to go. Like I was telling you last time you and I talked, like it's been an amazing camp, but moreover, because of Francis' discipline and because of the help of Trip Hale.
Former champion Junior Dos Santos, a man who has stared down the powerhouse himself, warns that writing off the underdog too early could be a massive mistake. He believes a hidden lightning-fast game plan might just trigger a shocking upset that flips the entire division on its head.
Yeah, man. That's what people don't understand about Philipe. Of course, Francis Ngannou is the favorite, and that's all good with that. But we cannot count Philipe out of this. He has a style, a very good style actually, and he's fast. So I really believe he implements well his strategy. He's gonna be a problem for Ngannou, and maybe we can see some interesting things happening in this fight.
Drawing from his own brutal night in the cage fighting Francis, Dos Santos shares a haunting lesson about what happens when you lose focus for even a split second. It's a chilling reminder from personal experience that sticking to the blueprint is the only way to survive the storm.
I shared with him a little bit what was my experience in fighting with Francis Ngannou. Because on my strategy at that time, and I went out of the strategy was not polite at the beginning. Just to move around and take advantage of my speed and everything. But the first kick I threw on Francis Ngannou, he fall down. And then I was moving around, finding angles, and I was feeling comfortable. So I said, oh my gosh, I'm gonna try that big punch. And that was my mistake, because I tried the big punch, he countered on top of it, and enjoyed the moment to finish the fight. So I told him, you gotta stick to your strategy. What's the strategy? So stick to that and make it happen.
Having shared the canvas with Ngannou, the veteran knows exactly how to crack the code if the underdog can just drag the monster into deep waters. Dos Santos mapping out this exact path to victory sends a clear warning that an absolute shocker might be brewing if the fight goes late.
I really believe, Philipe will bring some very good excitement for this fight, and I don't think it's too hard for him to really win this fight, especially if it takes longer than when expected to take.
Former champion Michael Bisping takes a deep dive into Ngannou's wild journey from absolute dominance to a brutal roadblock that shook the combat sports world. It sets the stage perfectly for a man who still carries the most terrifying reputation on the planet.
And of course, Francis Ngannou being still one of the most feared men on the planet, the former UFC heavyweight champion of the world. He went over to the PFL, he became the champion there. He absolutely destroyed Renan Ferreira And he had a couple of boxing matches, as we know, and made a fortune. Went up against Tyson Fury, close fight, lost a decision, went up against Anthony Joshua, and the man got...
Bisping then turns his attention to the dangerous underdog riding a quiet but impressive win streak that most fans are completely overlooking. While their careers look totally different on paper, this breakdown proves exactly why counting him out is a massive mistake.
Fought for the UFC at UFC 299, if I remember rightly. That went down in Miami. And of course, he took on Ion Cutelaba. He got the win. Ion Cutelaba realistically is a light heavyweight. Before that, he beat Maxim Grishin, he beat Vincent Prue, and he beat Marcin Prachnio. So he left the UFC on a 4-fight win streak. There was a couple of losses in there beforehand to Tanner Boser and Andrei Arlovsky, but as I say, he won his last 4. Now, he is 40 years old, and respectfully, he never had the kind of career that Francis Ngannou did. As I say, he was the former UFC heavyweight champ, and he went and, made some money in the boxing world, so fair play to him.
Stepping back into the cage after carrying the weight of heavy personal tragedy, the powerhouse is out to prove he has evolved into a completely different animal. Bisping hints that this comeback fight won't just be a routine victory. It's going to be a statement that shocks the world.
It's probably going to be a great night for Francis Ngannou. And we know what happened with Francis. Sadly, he was involved in that accident where a young lady lost her life. So that was no doubt a troubling time. And it's crazy that happened to him. And the similar kind of thing, a car accident happened with Anthony Joshua. Those two guys fought each other and both went through awful circumstances. Of course, with Ngannou's side, a young lady lost her life. With Anthony Joshua, he lost 2 friends in that accident. Just unbelievable. And you got to think, more than likely, Francis Ngannou is going to go out there and do what he does. Or who knows? Maybe he's going to shoot a double leg. Maybe he's going to take him down, win by Anaconda or something.
Oh, you're a wrestler.
Because this is the statement from Francis Ngannou. While the world was busy talking, I was busy evolving. Silence shouldn't be mistaken for absence. It's the sound of a predator closing the distance. Stepping back into the cage isn't just a return, it's a reclamation.
The legendary Chael Sonnen zeroes in on Ngannou's subtle shift in persona, breaking down how a simple look could tease a massive psychological shift. He believes the powerhouse might be plotting to stake a claim that will completely shake up the heavyweight hierarchy.
Francis is a monster, and then he wears sunglasses indoors. That's interesting to me. Now, that's very simple. Like a guy that understands he needs a gimmick, but he's too uncreative to come up with one, would put sunglasses on. Okay. I'll take a simple gimmick in front of no gimmick. All the fighting nerds did is put a little tape in between their glasses. They became the greatest faction MMA has ever seen. The single greatest faction MMA has ever seen. The most monetizable and profitable as well. They sold those glasses. So I'm not against Francis putting these on. What if Francis came out and claimed he is the true champion? He's the baddest heavyweight in the world.
Sonnen takes it a step further, mapping out a brilliant but villainous path for the powerhouse to maximize his terrifying aura. It opens up a wild possibility that we are about to see a completely different, much darker version of the giant step into the cage.
I think there's an opportunity. I don't think that Francis is the performer. I don't think that he quite has those skills, but you could feed him a line or two. Hand him a line or two, say to the mic, walk out. Monsters don't talk. I think there's opportunity here. I think Coach is onto something. And I think that Francis should give a real consideration to turning heel.
The Barnhill brothers break down the massive gap in skill, pointing out a reckless habit that could prove fatal for the underdog. They warn that trading wild shots with the most dangerous puncher alive can only end in one day.
Francis is an even bigger favorite than Ronda is. Philipe Lins, had close competition with Ion Cutelaba. He had a nice knockout of Ovin St. Preux.
At light heavyweight. Remember.
Yeah, light heavyweight. But the one thing when you look at Philippe's tape, you don't need to watch too much to see that the guy just swings wild. No, he's powerful. He can hurt you, but not to the level of Francis can. When you're standing throwing wild shots in front of Francis Ngannou, what's the conclusion? You're going to get slipped.
Looking ahead to how the actual fight plays out, the brothers predict an absolute demolition that will be over before it even really begins. Fans are warned not to blink because this main attraction is set to be a short, violent masterpiece.
There's no way he's going to be able to take Francis down and control him. I see Francis Ngannou getting this fight done via TKO in round 1. And look, if you're somebody that does wind up buying one of those tickets to go to the event, or you do decide to sign into Netflix and watch the show as it goes on, be sure you tune in early, because the only fight that's likely to go the distance is Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry, and then everything else that's going to be worth watching is going to happen on the prelims. So tune in early and don't miss those, because I have a feeling the main and the co-main are going to last about a grand